One of my guilty pleasures for favorite pastime is definitely checking out the WWE Network. And one of the main shows that I love to check out as much as possible is the Legends of Wrestling panel hosted by Mean Gene Okerlund. And he has just a great roundtable discussion with legends of the business to talk about a various number of topics. Standout episodes in my mind is the history of Raw, evolution of hardcore, definitely patriotism, giants, badasses of wrestling, the territories, worst characters. That's just to get you guys started. But as I was checking out this series, the burning question that just kept lingering more and more in my mind is, why the hell isn't this series continuing to be ongoing with new episodes exclusively on the WWE Network? And let me just go on record and say that Legends of Wrestling series is one of the most best series ever produced by the WWE, because it's very honest, it's very insightful, and it's just straight up pure, in your face, that damn good. I love it. Now, for those of you that have your cable provider still, you guys know that the WWE Network on demand, or however they were labeling it, they basically pulled it from the cable distributors to make way for the WWE Network, and that officially had went into effect January of this year. But aside from that, we really weren't getting that many new episodes of Legends of Wrestling, as I think the last episode that they did was sometime in late 2012, early 13. So it's been on a bit of a hiatus for a good significant amount of time. I would personally love to see WWE bring this series back. Now, I know there's a couple of people that check out our shows from time to time that happens to have strong ties in WWE. Hell, we actually know a few people that work in the company that we're friends with over here. I personally would love to see this series come back. And I know there's a couple of obstacles that they have to get over in order to make this happen, because one of the main focal points, one of the vital pieces to making the series so successful for 58 minutes, an hour, however long that they do these shows every single time, is the panel. And one guy that they've lost, which really hurts the Legends of Wrestling panel tremendously, is good old JR Jim Ross. No reason to rehash his exit from the WWE. I'm sure most of you guys are already aware of that. But the point that I want to make, without JR, you're missing years and years and years, decades on top of decades of great wrestling knowledge. And that needs to be made up for in a huge way. And one of the things that I was thinking was, well, why not have Vince McMahon be part of the panel? I think this would be something very refreshing. I think this would give fans a new perspective on Vince McMahon. Who better than Vince McMahon himself, a guy that has been there through many years of the company. He went way back to when his father had started doing the whole thing, and originally Vince McMahon was not allowed to have anything to do with the wrestling business. But then as time went on, his dad said, look, I will like to bring you in as an announcer, and pretty much we all know the rest is history and everything. Who better than Vince McMahon, the guy that has been behind some of the greatest moments and the worst moments in WWE history? He still has that connection to the old territory days. Who better than Vince McMahon? Besides, I really like the idea of Vince McMahon basically presenting a new side to himself that most fans probably would dream of being able to see, which is that side of him that is very relaxed, very laid back, and he's just being a straight up shooter on a lot of the things that has been happening in the course of the wrestling industry. So that's a good runner up right there. Another person that I was thinking about to take the place of Jim Ross is Bill Apter. And for those of you that may not know Bill Apter, he's basically an American journalist who for many decades, pretty much like since the 70s to present, has had such an illustrious career in professional wrestling. Most notably, he is known for working with Pro Wrestling Illustrated, one of my favorite magazines that covers the whole world of pro wrestling. They do it very well. Big fan of theirs. used to have a subscription when I was a teenager. Nowadays, I just pick up the magazine occasionally. I'm kind of thinking about getting my subscription to it again, but that's not the point. But Bill Apter, he has close ties to the wrestling business, to the wrestling industry. Matter of fact, he had recently did some stuff for the WWE Network, and he also had wrote an article for the WWE.com website about Bruno Sammartino. So this is a guy right here. Really, I don't think WWE needs to go that far and make him be a key vital part on the relaunch of the new WWE Legends of Wrestling panel. Now, of course, there's also that thing that's been going on with Michael P.S. Hayes. As some of you all are aware, Michael Hayes, he's been on a little bit of a sabbatical, a forced sabbatical at that, from WWE as a result of basically giving Rosa Mendez a drink. And bear in mind, she had just got out of rehab. This was like a couple of months ago, by the way, so I'm just trying to get you guys caught up to speed. But word got back to upper WWE management about Michael Hayes trying to offer Rosa Mendez a drink, and he's pretty much been on a hiatus ever since, and surely it's just a matter of time before he comes back. But until then, hey, personally, that's a huge loss right there. I would love to see WWE, the powers that be, just say, okay, you know what, we got to get Michael Hayes back in on this. And he's definitely a guy that also provides very great knowledge of the wrestling industry. But until they can get Michael P.S. Hayes back in there, until they decide to allow him to be able to take part in stuff like that, I was thinking possibly a new angle that they could go with this Legends of Wrestling panel is introduce a WWE superstar or diva. They could just be a special guest every single episode, someone that's definitely very knowledgeable of the business. Maybe they could go with a second, third generation wrestler or what have you, and make it to the point where they're co-guessing on a number of episodes. I think that would be a smart way to go. At least this way, you can add a little bit of element to the younger audience that are trying to check out these shows to see if they might be able to see their favorite WWE superstar or diva. I just think it makes a lot more sense that way. Don't get me wrong, I have no problem kicking back and seeing guys that are like 2-3 times older than me talking about the good old days of wrestling, but I'm also aware that the way this society is now, we got that younger generation. I want it all, and I want it right now, boom, 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 or whatever. And I'm just thinking about what would be kind of pleasing to the eye for some viewers. So I think it only makes a little bit of sense to try to go with someone from the WWE roster, whether it be a superstar or a diva. Just let them be a special guest. And honestly, I would love to see this series come back on a weekly basis. Don't make it be a monthly thing. Just have it come back on a weekly basis. They could basically do like maybe 12 episodes, take about 3 months off, maybe 4 months, bring it back. Kind of do it similar to VH1 Classics, that metal show. They do about 8 to 12 episodes, and then they're on hiatus for about 4 months. They come back with a new season, and they just basically keep doing it like that. I would like to see WWE implement that in their Legends of Wrestling show revitalization. And there's a lot that they can cover. Here's an idea for WWE. And honestly, I think they should really capitalize on this. I think one of the first episodes that they should do is talking about the departure of CM Punk. And I would hate for them to do a unique spin to this, kind of similar to when Stone Cold Steve Austin had took his ball and he rolled out. I'm sure you guys remember WWE Confidential. There was that infamous episode where they had covered Stone Cold Steve Austin's walkout, and they were pretty much just using that episode as a way to kind of grill into him and all that. As I remember, they even have Vince McMahon in there and all that. And I would hate for it to kind of go that route. But at the same time, I would like for them to kind of follow up on an old episode of Legends of Wrestling that they did, where they were talking about renegades and outlaws. And CM Punk was actually one of the guys that was brought up. And at the time, the panel, they commended CM Punk for standing his ground always raising his hand whenever he saw or heard something that didn't quite sound right to him, always being that guy that would let his voice be heard. And they were talking about how other folks on the WWE roster need to step up, especially if they want more success from the company rather than just be so complacent all the damn time. And they were just committing the hell out of CM Punk. And then you turn around about 2 years later, CM Punk, of course, looks like he has quit the WWE. I would love to see a first Legends of Wrestling episode be dedicated for like a whole hour talking about some of the biggest walkouts in WWE history. Looking back on it, they can definitely spend a good chunk of the time talking about CM Punk, or just dedicate it to CM Punk's walkout and basically have it be a companion episode to what they had did with the Renegades and Outlaw episode. But I think that would be a good way to hit a home run. Most importantly, I think that if all the information that's out there is accurate as far as CM Punk's WWE contract expiring this summer, I think it would only make sense to go on ahead and let this new series, the series premiere, if you will, kick off a day or two or the week after CM Punk's contract with the company expires. That way, if they do decide, and you never know, Vince McMahon could decide at the last minute he wants to take some real serious digs into CM Punk. At least this way, if they do go that route and it gets downright ugly, just borderline or downright slander, Phil Brooks, aka CM Punk, can't turn right back around and try to sue the WWE. So I think it would be a smart move to have it launch after CM Punk's contract expires. But yeah, I think there's a lot more storytelling that can be told. Of course, if they aren't able to go with Vince McMahon, because I know he's pretty damn busy as it is, and he may not be at that point yet where he's ready to do something like that, even though in the past he's hosted shows before and all that. Another person that I can think of that would be a really good replacement for Jim Ross would be Jerry the King Lawler. There's a guy, he spent many decades in the business, worked for a lot of wrestling promotions, started up a few wrestling promotions. He's another one that can bring great insight. I think he'd be a very good replacement for Jim Ross. But yeah, I like the idea of having Bill Apter in there. I'm keeping my fingers crossed as far as Vince McMahon goes. I think that would be something pretty badass to see. But yeah, I was checking out the episodes, and as I said, the more and more that I was watching them, the more and more it made me say, okay, we gotta see this series come back, and I would love to see it come back. What do you guys think? Those of you that had WWE Classics on demand, was this a series that you had checked out? And if so, what do you think about my ideas? Do you think this is something that WWE needs to implement? Would you like to see WWE Legends of Wrestling come back? Sign off, post your comments down below, and we'll definitely follow up on what y'all have to say on a future episode of the RCWR Show.